Snape is praised for inventing spells like Sectumsempra, Levicorpus, and the Muffliato Charm. And during his lifetime, Voldemort pushed these limits even further, eclipsing him by creating entirely unique and never-before-seen pieces of magic like Unsupported Flight, the Protection Orb spell, the one he used on Nagini, and the infamous DADA curse. And Dumbledore, well, actually, he didn't create anything. The most powerful wizard in the world, and probably the most powerful wizard in history, didn't really invent a single spell. At least, not one that we know of. And that's a bit strange, because if anyone should have been creating new magic, it was him. Today we'll be diving into all of this and more as we discuss Albus Dumbledore's magical accomplishments. Let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. When you look at Dumbledore's resume, there's really no question that he had both the ability and the knowledge to create entirely new spells if he wanted to. He was widely considered to be one of the leading magical minds of his time, and it wasn't like Dumbledore got brilliant overnight or in old age. He was a shining star as early as childhood. By the end of his first year, he would never again be known as the son of a Muggle hater, but as nothing more or less than the most brilliant student ever seen at the school. During his time at Hogwarts, Dumbledore proved year after year that he was anything but ordinary, collecting nearly every award and accolade the school had to offer, and cementing his reputation as a student unlike any other. According to Griselda Marchbanks, a professor working for the Wizarding Examinations Authority, young Albus performed feats with a wand that she had never seen before. And his brilliance didn't stop there, as he went on to win the prestigious Barnabas Finkley Prize for Exceptional Spellcasting, along with a gold medal for groundbreaking contributions to the International Alchemical Conference. He not only won every prize of note that the school offered, he was soon in regular correspondence with the most notable magical names of the day, including Nicolas Flamel, the celebrated alchemist, Bathilda Bagshot, the noted historian, and Adalbert Waffling, the magical theoretician. Several of his papers found their way into learned publications such as Transfiguration Today, Challenges in Charming, and The Practical Potioneer. Anyway, my point is this: for someone with so many accolades, you'd certainly expect to find at least a handful of original spells attributed to him. But when you actually go looking for them, they just aren't there. At least nothing concrete. I also noticed that when others have tried to put together lists of magic that Dumbledore created, the examples fall into a very different category. For instance, the Deluminator is one of the few things we can confidently say he invented. It's a fully original magical object with a clearly defined function, absorbing and redistributing light. This is a genuine creation, but it also isn't a spell. In my video discussing all of the spells that Voldemort created, I covered a few that he didn't invent from scratch, but definitely reinvented, and I think the same arguments could be made for Dumbledore. Take Patronus communication as an example. Dumbledore didn't invent the Patronus Charm itself. That's already an established piece of magic, but he is credited with developing the ability to use it to transmit messages. He raised his wand into the air and pointed it in the direction of Hagrid's cabin. Harry saw something silvery dart out of it and streak away through the trees like a ghostly bird. While there is no confirmation in the books that Dumbledore invented this ability, J.K. Rowling clarified this bit of info in an old interview. So how do the members of the Order of the Phoenix communicate with each other? Members of the Order use their Patronuses to communicate with each other. They are the only wizards who know how to use their spirit guardians in this way, and they have been taught to do so by Dumbledore. He invented this method of communication. The Patronus is an immensely efficient messenger for several reasons. It is an anti-dark arts device, which makes it highly resilient to interference from dark wizards. It is not hindered by physical barriers. Each Patronus is unique and distinctive, so that there is never any doubt which Order member has sent it. Nobody else can conjure another person's Patronus, so there is no danger of false messages being passed between Order members. Nothing conspicuous needs to be carried by the Order member to create a Patronus, and as many of you have deduced, Dumbledore's Patronus is indeed a phoenix. Within the Order of the Phoenix, many witches and wizards make use of this highly effective method of communication, sending messages through their Patronuses. The spell proves invaluable, most notably at Bill and Fleur's wedding, when Kingsley Shacklebolt's Patronus delivers a warning that the Ministry has fallen and the Death Eaters are on their way. Later, Snape uses his own Patronus to guide Harry to the Sword of Gryffindor, an act that ultimately helps him destroy one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. And while this isn't really a new spell, you could argue that it's a new and very useful innovation of an existing one. Another spell that's often associated with Dumbledore, but rarely talked about in terms of origin, is Firestorm. This is a spell we see him use in the cave when he and Harry are surrounded by Inferi, a massive controlled ring of fire that not only keeps them at bay, but actively drives them back. Unlike many other spells in the series, Firestorm has no known incantation, and more importantly, no other confirmed users. But then, through the darkness, fire erupted, crimson and gold, a ring of fire that surrounded the rock so that the Inferi holding Harry so tightly stumbled and faltered. Dumbledore was on his feet again, pale as any of the surrounding Inferi, but taller than any too, the fire dancing in his eyes. His wand was raised like a torch, and from its tip emanated the flames, like a vast lasso, encircling them all with warmth. Firestorm isn't just another example of basic fire magic, it's something far more refined. The spell produces a perfectly controlled ring of flame that moves with the caster, can be shaped, sustained, and even used offensively while still acting as a defensive barrier. And that level of control is something we really only ever see from the most advanced wizards. And if we compare it to something like Fiend Fire, which is chaotic, destructive, and nearly impossible to control, Firestorm, by contrast, is precise, contained, and deliberate, much more in line with Dumbledore's style of magic. So while it remains unconfirmed whether or not Dumbledore actually invented it, I'd say this is pretty compelling evidence. At the very least, he took existing fire-based magic and refined it into something far more controlled and far more powerful. Firestorm is one of the most powerful pieces of magic I've seen on display in Harry Potter, besides Protego Diabolica, so it would make perfect sense if the most powerful wizard in history created it. Moving along, another piece of magical knowledge Dumbledore is credited with is the 12 uses of dragon's blood, often cited as one of his major contributions. Dragon's blood, exactly what it sounds like, is the blood of any dragon species, and it's known to be both highly powerful and incredibly versatile. But for a long time, its practical applications weren't fully understood. And after spending some time in France after graduating from Hogwarts, Dumbledore returned to Britain and became particularly interested in studying the substance, specifically its uses, which at the time remained a relatively unexplored area of magic. Through his research, he identified 12 distinct applications for it, all of which he went on to publish. This work earned him widespread recognition within the wizarding world and played a major role in establishing his reputation as one of the leading magical minds of his time. But again, this is not an example of him creating something entirely new, just another example of him expanding the potential of something that already existed. While we haven't actually received confirmation on all 12 uses, here's a list of the ones we do know, as well as some theories. 1 and 2. Steve Kloves revealed 2 of the uses of dragon's blood in an interview. What kind of things do you run by rolling? A range of things, even something really simple. I once asked about the 12 uses of dragon's blood, which is referenced in the books. I emailed her to ask, and 25 seconds later, I got an email back with a list. One is an oven cleaner, yes. Another is a spot remover. It was really amazing. So kicking things off, we've got 2 rather underwhelming answers, an oven cleaner and a way of getting rid of spots or acne. 3. The third and last confirmed use of dragon's blood is that it can be used to get rid of verrucas, a type of wart that appears on the soles of your feet. Believe it or not, these 3 mundane uses are the only canon confirmed answers revealing what dragon's blood is used for. This leaves 9 uses outstanding. With that said, however, I happen to have 9 of my own theories for what these remaining uses may be. Let's get into it. Number 4. The 4th use of dragon's blood that I want to highlight is that it can be used to heal injuries, or at least ease the pain. Well, that's my theory anyway. The basis for this theory stems from the Order of the Phoenix, where Hagrid places a dragon stake on his face in order to ease the stinging he felt from injuries that he sustained while visiting the giant colony. It's entirely possible that something else from the dragon meat was helping, but in my opinion, it was most likely the blood. "You're not going to eat that, are you, Hagrid?" said Ron, leaning in for a closer look. "It looks poisonous." "It's supposed to look like that. It's dragon meat," Hagrid said, "and I didn't get it to eat." He picked up the stake and slapped it over the left side of his face. Greenish blood trickled down into his beard as he gave a soft moan of satisfaction. "That's better. It helps with the stinging, you know." Number 5. My theory for the fifth use of dragon's blood is simply that it has the ability to mimic human blood. In the Order of the Phoenix, Horace Slughorn wipes dragon blood all over the walls of his house to fake his own death and ward off the Death Eaters. When Dumbledore comes to find him, he asks Horace what type of blood it was that he wiped on the walls. "What kind of blood was that, incidentally?" asked Dumbledore loudly over the chiming of the newly unsmashed grandfather clock. "On the walls? Dragon," shouted the wizard called Horace. Perhaps dragon's blood is one of the closer bloods to human blood, at least visually. This one is certainly a little more questionable, particularly as dragon's blood was referenced to be green in the passage where Hagrid wipes a stake on his face. I don't know any humans with green blood. However, there are other instances in which it is suggested that the blood is red. Perhaps Hagrid just had the blood of one particular breed of dragon. 6. My sixth theory for the use of dragon's blood is that it is used as a potion strengthener. I actually saw some sources claiming that this was a confirmed use, but I wouldn't go that far. The main motivation behind this theory is that Slughorn, a master potioneer, was known to keep dragon blood in stock. Alternatively, it's entirely possible that dragon's blood doesn't function as a potion strengthener, but instead as its own potion's ingredient. One such potion that I can imagine dragon's blood being involved in is the Pepper-Up potion. The Pepper-Up potion was used for two things: to cure the common cold and to warm people up. The potion had a side effect of causing steam to emit from the drinker's ears. It seems only natural that the blood from a dragon, which is synonymous with warmth and fire, would be an appropriate fit for this potion. Let me know below what other potions you can think of that could benefit from dragon's blood. Number 7. With most of the confirmed uses discussed so far, dragon's blood has been used topically or transdermally. What this encourages me to explore further are the oral uses of dragon's blood. What happens if you drink it? My next theory for dragon's blood is that it can strengthen the drinker's skin. Dragon hides are notoriously strong and resistant to most spells. In fact, it would take 12 wizards casting the stunning spell at once to even have a chance at stunning it. Dragons are extremely difficult to slay, owing to the ancient magic that imbues their thick hides, which none but the most powerful spells can penetrate. I think that drinking dragon's blood could do one of two things to your skin. Number 1, temporarily strengthen it to a fairly significant degree, helping with spell resistance, or 2, slowly strengthen it over time. If this is the case, the more dragon blood you drink, the stronger your skin would get. This would need to be done over a longer period of time. Number 8. My next theory for dragon's blood is that it can aid in channeling magic. As we all know, dragon heartstrings are used as a core in some wands, typically powerful ones. If we consider the proximity of the dragon heartstring to the heart itself, then it would make sense that there is some hematological connection between the heartstring and blood. However, I would expect there to be some sort of caveat to this particular use. Namely, that in order to have this boost from the dragon's blood, you need to have been chosen by a dragon heartstring wand. 9. My next theory for dragon's blood is that when ingested, it can be used as an anti-diuretic. This usage isn't exactly pretty, but given that some of its uses are linked with cleaning surfaces and removing pimples, I think that it would sort of make sense that this miracle solution has the ability to help ease a complaining stomach. Number 10. My next theory for dragon's blood is that it can allow you to, for a very brief period of time, breathe fire. The connection between fire and dragons is an obvious one, so I won't dive into it. But the prospect of drinking dragon blood allowing you to breathe fire just feels right. I don't imagine this to be a sustained ability. Instead, I like to think that as soon as the dragon's blood hits your stomach, a single jet of fire spurts out of the drinker's mouth. Number 11. My next theory is that drinking dragon's blood brings you good fortune. In many cultures across the globe, especially in Chinese culture, the dragon is looked at as a symbol of luck and good fortune. In fact, dragons are so highly regarded in Chinese culture that many temples and shrines have been dedicated to them. In Harry Potter, there is a potion for good luck, aptly named Liquid Luck or Felix Felicis, but I like to imagine that drinking dragon's blood would provide a watered-down or slightly less effective version of this popular potion. The drawback to this theory is that I imagine a lot more people would have been using it for this function in the books. Number 12. My last theory for dragon's blood is a bit of a Hail Mary, and that's that it can be used to grow your nails. Dragons are well known for their strong talons and sharp spikes, so I like to imagine that it's entirely within the realm of possibility for dragon blood consumption to help strengthen your own nails. The idea behind ingesting an animal's organs or fluids to gain its power or inherit its traits falls under an anthropological concept called contagious or sympathetic magic. The principle of contagious magic states that personal energy can travel through objects, and that there is a permanent relationship between an individual and their body. Anyway, that concludes my list on the uses of dragon's blood. I think that when you take a step back and look at all of this, it's clear that Dumbledore was able to accomplish a lot in his lifetime. And while he may not have a huge list of spells with his name attached to them, it also doesn't mean he wasn't creating magic. I think it's far more likely that Dumbledore did create spells, just not in the way that someone like Voldemort or Snape did. Instead of flashy, named spells designed to impress or intimidate, I suspect it's possible that Dumbledore's contributions were far more subtle, woven into the fabric of everyday magic. Small refinements, slight optimizations, and improvements to spells that were already so widely used that nobody ever stopped to question where they came from. And that's the thing about Dumbledore. His brilliance wasn't just in what he could create, but in how he could use magic. We see it time and time again, the way he layers spells, chains them together, and adapts in real time. One spell flows into the next, each one building on the last, until the end result feels less like individual incantations and more like a single, seamless act of magic. In this way, Dumbledore sort of transcended the traditional spellcasting process, treating magic less like a collection of individual tools and more like a fluid system that could be shaped and manipulated at will. And I'd imagine that when you reach that level, the idea of inventing a spell almost becomes irrelevant. Dumbledore didn't leave behind a catalogue of named spells inextricably linked to his name, not because he couldn't, but because his magic existed on a level where names, incantations, and rigid structures didn't really matter anymore. He wasn't bound by the rules of magic, he was operating beyond them, and that's what made Dumbledore's magic different than everyone else's. And that's also the end of today's video. If I missed any spells or if you've got some theories of your own, then let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live